And so it's just her going on to her stalkerhood. I just didn't like it. It was miserable to read. I hated it. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Heidi and this is Zoe. And this video is going to be the first video on my personal channel. I have another channel that is all for my Diesel Creations page. So all the tumblers and stickers and things like that. So I have that channel, which I'll link below for you to check out. But this channel is going to be my personal channel. It's going to mostly, I think, be books, journaling, and things like that. So this video today, we're going to talk about books that I read in the month of June. So I have been doing the Goodreads challenge for several years now, and this year I challenged myself 48 books. And so far at the beginning of the year I really didn't do very good at all, but for the month of June I read 6 books, so that brings me up to 12 out of my 48. So if I continue to read 6 books a month for the rest of the year, then I will make my 48 book goal. So this video is going to be talking about the 6 books that I did read and then what I planned for the month of July. I have my bullet journal here and I document all of books that I've read, the amount of pages, what I rated them, and then what category they are. So I'll be referring back to this periodically just so I can remember. So let's go ahead and get started. First book I read was Crave by Tracy Wolff. This book I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's a young adult book. It's about 580-ish pages. And then let me really quickly gonna look back at the synopsis. Okay, so Crave is about a girl named Grace who was living with her parents who died unexpectedly, and she decided to go live with her uncle who owns or is like the principal or whatever of an academy up in Alaska. From there, she learns all about all these people. There's she doesn't quite know what's happening at first. Like, she just thinks she's going to this like private academy, and she doesn't quite understand some things that are kind of going on. She runs into people who are coming from outside the Alaskan winter in shorts and, you know, no t-shirts, no jackets, no nothing, and they act normal. And then she's seeing just all these little things that kind of don't add up, and she finds out that this is like a magical academy. And it's just her going through all the different things with the academy. So this is a first book in like a 6-book series. I didn't read anymore. It was a good book. I gave it 4 stars. It didn't get my attention. It took me a little bit to read the book. And that's kind of always the gauge of how well a book is to me, is how fast I can read it, because I don't have the best attention span sometimes when it comes to reading. So it's a series that I may pick up later if I just need something else to read and I'm trying to, fill some of my book space for this Goodreads challenge. I'm also not someone who is a big reader. I didn't enjoy English or writing or anything in high school. I read periodically. I'm trying to get more into reading. I'm following some people on YouTube. Some of these recommendations or some of the books that I'm reading and I plan to read going forward are coming straight from their recommendations. But they're much better at describing books. So if there's any books that are in this video that they describe better, I'll definitely make sure to add them in the description. Okay, so the second and third book that I read for the month of June are both from Zodiac Academy. So I read the first book, which is Awakening, and then the second book is Ruthless Fae. So essentially what it is 2 twin 18-year-olds that their parents died. They were kind of bouncing between foster family up until they were the age of 18, and they meet this strange person who basically tells them that they are not from this world. They are from a different world, and that they are fae, and they are actually the princesses of the king and queen that had died years and years and years ago. And if they come to Zodiac Academy and they succeed in their, learning their powers, and they can get through Zodiac Academy, then they will basically get their inheritance. They'll princesses of the world and get all this money. And so they decided, sure. And so they go to this Zodiac Academy school, which again is like a prep school. A lot of people say it's very similar to Harry Potter, in that there are 4 different houses, in that you get basically sorted to your house based on the power that you have. And there are 4 different powers. There's air, wind, fire, and water. So they get sorted their houses. They currently, because the king and queen were killed, and the world decided that the way that they were going to continue ruling was there were 4 families that basically said, we'll split the kingdom up into these 4 houses, and they would be the rulers going forward. So they have 4 sons of all the houses, and they are not happy that the twins are back, trying to make their life miserable to where they will go back to the world that they came from, leave them alone, let them continue on. So the first book is kind of like the introduction. It's them learning all the different people. There tends to be like a little, it looks like there's a kind of love interest, but basically the first book is just them trying to figure out how to go forward and not kind of give up because they get tormented, basically deciding if they're going to stay or not. So the second book is, again, they're still being tormented. It's a little bit better, kind of, but in the second book, there are a new aspect in the world that the girls are being introduced to, and essentially it's kind of like, they talk to it like a shadow that has the power of sucking up the power of others, killing them, and they inherit the power that they sucked. So the end of the book has like a big event that happened, and yeah, I mean, it was really interesting. I do have it on my list of additional books that I want to read. I want to finish out the series because it actually was pretty engaging. So I gave both of those books 1 and 2 5 stars because, again, I gauge it on how likely I am if it's a series, if I'm going to continue on with the series. If it's not a series, if it's a book that I enjoyed, I read fast, and I would actually go back to that author and read more books. So I'm kind of, it's very rare that I give a book below a 3 unless I just hated it. I kind of rate it on how fast I read it, and if I would go back, reread it again, or if I would go and more books in the series or by that author. So those books I gave 5 out of 5. I do plan on having more of those in the remaining year. So the fourth book that I read in the month of June was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I've read several books by her, and I've liked the majority of them. Some of them I like better than others. So this book is about a woman who was dating somebody. There was something happened, an accident, something at the very you find out what actually happens later on, but something happened. She somehow was involved in killing her boyfriend, ended up going to prison for killing him, and while she was in prison she found out she was pregnant. So she gave birth, gave her daughter to her boyfriend's family to take care of, because a very good family. And so the book is her after she gets out of prison. So she comes out of prison and she wants to move to where her daughter lives, and her whole goal is to basically meet with her boyfriend's family and try to have a relationship with them so she can meet her daughter, because she's never met her daughter. And so that's her main goal, and it's just her relationship and all of the struggle and the stress and finding herself and finding, you know, her love interest, her next love interest, and trying to overall just meet her daughter. That book was a romance book. Obviously I gave it a 5 out of 5. Usually for Colleen Hoover I usually fluctuate between 4s and 5s. I don't think I've ever given her books below a 4. I can read her books really fast. I enjoyed it. The next book is The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. This is a historical fiction. This book took me a while, and I'm usually pretty good with historical fiction books. That's another genre I've realized I actually really enjoy. I've read a few of them now, and I was never good in history. In high school, I was a math and science were my 2 classes that I really enjoyed. English and history were not. I did not like reading history. I could never get it to sink into my head what was being taught. I have learned, though, that historical fiction I actually really enjoy, because it has the aspects of the history part of it, and I actually enjoy, while I'm reading it, to kind of Google and see what's history and what's the fiction side. So this book is a book about the government established like a book, can't remember what it's called, but essentially the government came up with this program where in like the backwoods of Kentucky back in like the early 1900s, they rode from like town to town or house to house within their town, and would basically be like a library. They would go and bring books, lend them out, and then they would bring them back the next week, and they would travel through all the woods and the rain and the weather, and they would be on horseback or on donkey. So this book is about the main character, who has bluish tint skin, is very much, there's a lot of hatred toward her just because of the color of her skin. So this book is about her. She wants to be a librarian, and she enjoys taking these books to all the different people in the woods in the backcountry. It was a good book. It was actually interesting. There was at the very end of the book, there were pictures of these different women going on horseback, trudging through the mud, trudging through the forest to deliver all these books to different places. So it was really interesting. It was a slower read for me, I think, because there really wasn't a whole lot of action in it. I mean, there were things that happened obviously that were interesting, and it kept the book progressing. It just wasn't a book that, it didn't keep me engaged. And so with all of that, I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. It still was good. I didn't hate it. It took me a lot longer to read. So the next, I'm not going to call it a book because this is the first of its kind that I've ever read. So I am reading this book primarily straight from some of the people who I watch on YouTube. And so I'll link them down below. But I read Spy versus Family, or Spy Family, the first volume. And this is a manga. I don't know. So I've never read one of these before. This is a story about this man who's a spy, and his mission is he is supposed to get information from this other man he's involved in this academy, and he's very secretive. The only way you can get close to this person is if you go to this college or this school, and that's really the only in you have is through this school because he's a super private person. So the spy's mission is get access to this man, and the only way to do it is he has to have a family. He has to have a daughter or has a kid. So he goes to a local orphanage, just picks a random kid, and ends up finding that the girl that he chose is a telepath, so she can read minds. And so she's so entertaining. I really enjoyed this one character in particular because she's, this young little girl, like she's probably like 5 or 6. She's hearing everything that's happening, and she's like, what? He's a spy, and I wonder where his guns are. And she's very entertaining. Her name is Anya. He has a daughter, and then he gets, his daughter into the first initial testing, and she passes, so she's able to go into the next step. And the next step is interviewing at the academy, but it's a family, so it has to have a man and a woman and your child. So it's, you have to have a family. You can't just be just single. And so he's like, okay, now I gotta find me a wife. And so he stumbles onto this girl that ends up being an assassin. So now you have your spy, your telepath, and your assassin, and none of them know about each other. So it's really interesting, their dynamic. So the first book is all, kind of the build up and getting into the academy. So the very end of it, they've done the interview, and now they're trying to wait and see if they actually get into the academy. It was very interesting. I read it really quickly. It's a manga, so it's not like a full-blown book. It's kind of it's a Japanese comic book, essentially. So I read that really quickly. I think I was able to read that in 2 days, and I work full-time and I have 2 kids. That says a lot. So that book I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I do plan on getting more books in the series, just so I can see how it progresses and the relationship between all 3 of the characters. And then the last book that I read was Novel Confession by Caitlin Barasch. So this book I stumbled upon because my daughter needed to have some books to read over the summer, so we went to our local library, and this book had the cover kind of, it originally pulled me in, and so I read the back cover, and I was like, okay, whatever, I'll just give it a try. It's a library book, I might like it. So essentially this book is about a girl who's been dating her boyfriend for a little bit, and she has a lot of mental baggage that she has from her past. She's got a boyfriend. He's a great guy, and he happens to just mention that his ex-girlfriend lives in New York City, kind of around close to where they're at. And I don't know what triggered her, but she decided that she needed to learn about this ex-girlfriend. And so she essentially starts stalking this girl, and the whole book is her trying to gain more information. So first it was, let me stalk her Instagram and her Facebook, and then let me stalk, maybe let's go and look and see what she actually looks like. And so where does she like to shop? Maybe I'll show up at a bookshop or a coffee shop that she likes. So maybe she likes, she finds her and finds the coffee that she likes, and then she's like, I'm going to like this coffee too, and maybe I can get, I can speak to her. And then she speaks to her, and now she's like, well, maybe we can be friends. And the whole time the ex-girlfriend doesn't have any idea who she is. The current girlfriend, the main character, doesn't tell her boyfriend what's happening. And so it's just her going on to her stalkerhood. So, I knew what the book was when I bought it or when I picked it up at the library. It's not like I didn't understand or didn't know what the book was going to be about. It was just, I don't know. I didn't like her. I did not like the character. I hated her. I made myself finish it. I read it in probably 4 days. I got through it. It just I couldn't. It was so hard. That one was a 2 out of 5 stars. That, again, I don't really give. 3 is probably the lowest score I've ever given a book when I've actually reviewed it. This one was, I did not like it. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like, they had just nonsense. Like, they had stuff in the book that had nothing to do with anything. It was just filler. And I don't know. I just didn't like it. It was miserable to read. I hated it. But again, I knew what I was getting into when I picked it up, so it's not like it came out of nowhere. I knew what this book was about, so I should have realized I wasn't going to enjoy it the minute I read the sleeve. But I tried it. I hated it. So 2 out of 5. If you like those kind of books, like those like stalkerish type books, then this might be your thing. But it was not for me. So those were all the books that I read in June. I don't know, was that 6 books? So it's 6 legit books and then 1 manga. So 6/7 depending on how you score a manga book. So that's what all I read. But in the month of July, again, I'm going to try to make 6 books going forward so I can hit my 48 book goal. In my journal, the books that I want to read for this month are And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. That was a straight recommendation off of another YouTuber. I'll link it below. Redhead of Auschwitz. That's I don't know if it's considered a historical fiction or if it's just a nonfiction book. It's essentially, from what I gather, it is a grandson or granddaughter writing a book on their grandparent who went through Auschwitz, who had red hair. Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. Again, I can get through her books pretty fast. The Locked Door by Frida McFadden. This one I think I stumbled across on Kindle Unlimited. I don't really know a whole lot about that. This month I want to read Zodiac Academy number 3 so I can continue that series. And then the last book I want to get is One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. So this book I actually do have. This book is a book that was, again, another referral by a YouTuber. And so this book, I believe, is about 4 cousins that go to a, like, their family island, I think. And it's them, basically everybody's lying. And so it's trying to figure out what's happening. So I don't know a whole lot about it other than it got really good reviews from the other YouTuber. So yeah, I'm really interested in reading this one. And so that would be my 6 books for the month of July. So with that, thanks for watching. Please make sure you subscribe. If there are any books that you really enjoyed, then let me know below. I'm really interested in kind of building up my collection, and hopefully that will make sure I continue on with this book reading progress that I've done so far this year. So yeah, so let me know if there's any interesting books that you really enjoyed reading this year, and any books that you are really interested in seeing come out the rest of this year. And with all of that, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment, and I will see you next month. Bye.